The sky had not been blue for 3 years. Commander Laura Bennett stood on the roof of the emergency bunker and looked up at the thick gray clouds that covered the earth. Ash fell like snow, but it was not cold. It was poison. Every breath burned her lungs, even through the mask she wore. Behind her, the city of Chicago lay in ruins. Not from war, but from nature. The volcanoes had started erupting 4 years ago. First one in Indonesia, then another in Japan, then the big one under Yellowstone. The ash clouds had spread across the entire planet, blocking the sun. Crops died. Animals starved. People fought over the last scraps of food. 8 billion people lived on Earth. Scientists said that number would be 0 within 5 years. Laura climbed down from the roof and walked into the bunker. The hallways were dim, lit only by emergency lights. Power was running low everywhere. She passed families huddled together, children crying softly, old people staring at nothing with empty eyes. She found Dr. Kevin Marshall in the communications room. He sat in front of a large screen, his face lit by its pale glow. Kevin was the smartest person Laura had ever met. He had spent the last 2 years trying to find a way to save humanity. He had failed every time. Any response? Laura asked. Kevin shook his head slowly. Nothing. We have been sending signals into space for 18 months. No one is out there. Or if they are, they do not care. Laura sat down next to him. Maybe we should stop hoping for aliens to save us. Maybe, Kevin said. But what else can we do? Our machines cannot clean the atmosphere fast enough. Our food supplies will last another 8 months. After that, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Laura put her hand on his shoulder. Then, we keep sending signals until the last day. We do not give up. Kevin nodded and turned back to his screen. His fingers moved across the keyboard, sending another message into the dark void of space. The same message they had sent thousands of times before. This is Earth. We are dying. Please help us. 3 weeks later, something answered. Laura was sleeping when Kevin burst into her room. His eyes were wide and his hands were shaking. Laura, wake up. You need to see this. She followed him to the communications room, still half asleep. On the screen, there was a message. It was not in any human language, but their computers had translated it. We hear you. We are coming. Laura stared at the words. Her heart pounded in her chest. Is this real? I checked it 50 times, Kevin said. The signal came from beyond our solar system. Something is approaching Earth. Something fast. 2 days later, the ships arrived. Laura stood outside the bunker with a small group of soldiers and scientists. Above them, 3 enormous vessels hung in the sky. They were beautiful in a strange way, shaped like silver leaves with soft lights glowing along their edges. They made no sound at all. A smaller craft descended from the largest ship and landed gently on the ash-covered ground. A door opened, and figures stepped out. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They wore simple white robes. Their movements were slow and graceful, like dancers moving through water. Laura felt no fear looking at them, only wonder. One of them stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice was soft and musical. The translator device around its neck turned the words into English. I am called Vareth. We are the Volante. We received your calls for help. Laura stepped forward. I am Commander Laura Bennett. I speak for the people of Earth. We did not expect anyone to come. Vareth tilted its head slightly. Why would we not come? You are suffering. We heard you. Laura did not know what to say. She had prepared speeches, arguments, offers of trade or alliance. But Vareth spoke as if helping was the most natural thing in the world. We have very little to offer you, Laura said honestly. Our world is dying. Our resources are almost gone. Vareth made a gesture that might have been a smile. We do not want your resources. We want nothing from you. Kevin stepped forward, unable to contain himself. Then why help us? Why would you travel so far for strangers? Vareth was quiet for a moment. Then it spoke words that Lavra would remember for the rest of her life. We are also refugees. Our own world died long ago. We have been wandering the stars for many generations, looking for a new home. We know what it means to watch everything you love turn to dust. Vareth looked up at the gray sky. Suffering recognizes suffering. How could we pass by and do nothing? Over the next few weeks, the Volante shared their gifts with humanity. They gave Earth machines that could clean the atmosphere, pulling the ash and poison from the air. They gave seeds that could grow in the damaged soil, plants that would bring life back to the dead land. They gave medical knowledge that cured diseases humans had fought for centuries. Lavra worked closely with Vareth during this time. She learned that the Volante numbered only 12,000 spread across their 3 ships. They had been traveling for over 200 years, and they had never found a world they could call home. Yet they gave freely to Earth, sharing supplies they could barely spare. You are giving us so much, Lavra said one evening. How can we ever repay you? Vareth shook its head gently. There is no debt. Kindness is not a transaction. It is simply what good beings do. But surely you need something. Fuel, food, materials for your ships? Vareth placed a thin hand on Laura's shoulder. Remember us. That is enough. Remember that when your world was dying, strangers came and offered help. Teach your children this story. Pass it down through generations. If you want to repay us, then one day, when you meet others who are suffering, show them the same kindness we showed you. On the day the Volante left, thousands of people gathered to watch their ships rise into the sky. Many were crying. Some reached their hands upward, as if trying to hold on to the beings who had saved them. Lavra stood at the front of the crowd. Vareth stood before her, ready to board the shuttle that would take it back to the fleet. Where will you go? Lavra asked. Onward, Vareth said. There are other stars, other worlds. Perhaps we will find a home. Perhaps we will wander forever. But we will carry the memory of Earth with us, and the knowledge that our help mattered. Lavra embraced Vareth. It was strange, holding a being from another world, but it felt right. We will never forget you, she whispered. I promise. Vareth stepped back and looked at her with those large, dark eyes. Goodbye, Laura Bennett. May your world bloom again. The Volante ships rose silently into the gray sky. Higher and higher they climbed, until they were just tiny points of light. And then they were gone, swallowed by the stars. Laura watched the empty sky for a long time. Around her, people began to return to their work, their hope renewed. The machines hummed. The seeds waited to be planted. A future that had seemed impossible was now within reach. She made a silent promise to herself, and to the beings who had saved her world. We will remember. And one day, we will find you again. 150 years had passed since the gray sky turned blue again. Professor Daniel Cooper stood in front of the memorial wall in New Chicago. The wall stretched for half a mile, covered with names, dates, and images. At the center was a massive sculpture of a Volante figure, its hands extended downward toward Earth, offering light to the darkness below. Daniel touched the cool stone of the wall. His great-great-grandmother had been there when the Volante came. She had been a child, only 7 years old, but she had seen the silver ships in the sky. She had told the story to her children, and they had told it to their children. And now Daniel carried that memory like a sacred flame in his heart. Beautiful, is it not? A voice said behind him. Daniel turned to see Senator Maria Santos walking toward him. She was a small woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. Despite her age, She moved with energy and purpose. "I come here every year on Volante Day," Daniel said. "It reminds me why I became a historian." Maria nodded and looked up at the sculpture. "My grandmother used to tell me that when the Volante ships appeared, people fell to their knees and wept. Not from fear, but from hope. Can you imagine? The whole world had given up, and then strangers from the stars came to save them, and asked for nothing in return," Daniel added. "Nothing except that we remember them." Maria's voice grew softer. "And we have. Every child on Earth learns their story. We celebrate Volante Day in every nation. We build temples and monuments in their honor. But I wonder sometimes if that is enough." Daniel looked at her curiously. "What do you mean?" Maria reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "I need to show you something. Something I found in the old archives. I think you are the right person to see it." They walked together to Daniel's office at the university. The campus was beautiful, filled with gardens and fountains and students laughing in the sunshine. It was hard to believe that this same land had once been covered in ash and death dot in his office. Daniel inserted the chip into his computer. A recording began to play. It was old and damaged, filled with static and broken images. But the voice was clear enough that it was Commander Laura Bennett, speaking near the end of her life. "I am making this recording because I need someone to know the truth," Laura said. Her face was lined with age, but her eyes were still bright. "Before the Volante left, Vareth told me something privately. They did not want to burden humanity with it, but I believe we need to know." Daniel leaned forward, his heart beating faster. "The Volante were dying," Laura continued. "Their ships were old and breaking down. Their population was shrinking every generation. When they helped us, they gave away resources they desperately needed themselves. Vareth told me they might not survive another 100 years of wandering." Laura paused, and her voice broke slightly. "They saved us knowing it might cost them everything. And I have carried this secret for 60 years, waiting for the day when humanity would be strong enough to do something about it." The recording ended. Daniel sat in silence. Maria watched him carefully. "They sacrificed themselves for us," Daniel whispered. "They were already dying, and they still stopped to help strangers." Maria nodded. "I have done the research. Based on the direction they were traveling and their ship speeds, I believe the Volante are still out there somewhere. Or their descendants are, if any survived. We have to find them," Daniel said immediately. "That is exactly what I was hoping you would say." Maria smiled. "I am proposing a mission to the Senate next week. A fleet of ships equipped with the best technology humanity has developed. We will search the galaxy until we find the Volante, and we will repay the debt our ancestors owed." Daniel stood up, his mind racing. "It could take decades. The galaxy is enormous." "Then it will take decades," Maria said firmly. "The Volante wandered for 200 years looking for a home. We can search for as long as it takes to find them." The Senate approved the mission 3 months later. The vote was unanimous. 12 ships were built, the largest and most advanced vessels humanity had ever created. They were called the Gratitude Fleet. Each ship carried thousands of crew members, supplies to last centuries, and technology designed to help rebuild a civilization. Captain Henry Cole was chosen to command the flagship. He was a quiet man with steady hands and kind eyes. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, though he had not known it at the time. On the day of launch, billions of people watched. The ship stood in a row on the plains of what had once been called Yellowstone, the place where humanity's darkest hour had begun. Now it was a garden, green and full of life, a symbol of what the Volante's kindness had made possible. Daniel Cooper stood in the crowd, too old now to join the mission himself. Maria Santos stood beside him, leaning on a cane but smiling broadly. Captain Cole's voice echoed across the field, broadcast to every corner of the earth. 150 years ago, strangers came to our dying world. They gave us hope when we had none. They gave us life when we faced only death. They asked for nothing except that we remember them. Cole paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. Today, we begin the journey to find those strangers, to tell them that we remember, to tell them that their kindness was not forgotten, and to give them what they gave us, a future. The engines roared to life. The 12 ships rose slowly into the sky, climbing higher and higher until they were just points of light against the blue dot. Daniel watched until they disappeared. "Do you think they will find them?" he asked Maria. Maria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "The Volante believed that suffering recognizes suffering. I believe that gratitude recognizes gratitude. Somewhere out there, they are waiting for us. And we will find them, no matter how long it takes." Daniel nodded. He thought of his great-great-grandmother, the little girl who had watched silver ships descend from a gray sky. He thought of Laura Bennett, carrying her secret for 60 years. He thought of Vareth, offering help to strangers while his own people faded away. The sky was blue above him. The grass was green beneath his feet. Children were laughing in the distance. All of it because of kindness. And now humanity would carry that kindness across the stars, searching for the beings who had given them everything. "We are coming," Daniel thought. "We remember, and we will find you." He stayed there until the sun began to set, watching the stars appear one by one, imagining the fleet moving among them, carrying the gratitude of 8 billion souls into the endless night. 30 years in the void between stars could change a person. Lieutenant Amy Walsh had been 22 years old when the Gratitude Fleet left Earth. Now she was 52, and she had spent more of her life in space than on solid ground. She had watched colleagues grow old, fall in love, have children, and die, all within the metal walls of the flagship. She had forgotten what rain felt like on her skin, but she had never forgotten why they were out here. Amy sat at her navigation console, studying the star charts for what felt like the millionth time. Around her, the bridge hummed with quiet activity. Crew members moved between stations, checking readings, adjusting course, doing the endless small tasks that kept the fleet alive. Captain Henry Cole stood at the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. His hair had turned gray over the years, and deep lines marked his face. But his eyes were still sharp, still searching, still full of the same determination that had driven him since the day they launched. "Report," he said. "We are approaching the Kethany system," Amy said. "Long-range scans show a small trading station on the 4th moon. The Kethany are known to have records of ships passing through this region." Cole nodded. "Prepare a landing team. We will ask them about the Volante." This had become their routine. Jump to a new system. Find whoever lived there. Ask if they had seen the Volante. Usually, the answer was no. Sometimes they found old records or fading memories. Once, they had discovered a monument on an abandoned world, built by a species the Volante had helped centuries ago. But the Volante themselves remained ghosts, always just out of reach. The Kethany were small beings with rough gray skin and too many eyes. They lived underground, in tunnels carved beneath the surface of their frozen moon. They were suspicious of strangers at first, but they warmed up when they learned why the humans had come. "The Volante," the Kethani elder said, clicking its mandibles thoughtfully. "Yes, we remember them. Peaceful people. Sad people. They passed through this region, perhaps 80 cycles ago? They traded some medical supplies for fuel. They did not stay long. Do you know where they went?" Cole asked. The elder made a gesture that might have meant regret. "Deeper into the void. toward the dead stars. We warned them that nothing lives out there, but they said they had nowhere else to go. Cole thanked the Kethany and returned to the ship. Amy could see the weariness in his face, the doubt that crept in after every dead end. But she also saw something else, the refusal to give up. Set course for the dead stars, Cole ordered. Chief Engineer Oscar Davis was in the engine room when Amy came to deliver the new coordinates. He was an old man now, one of the few original crew members still alive. His hands were scarred from decades of repairs, and his back was bent from years of crawling through maintenance tunnels. But he still knew every inch of the ship better than anyone. The dead stars, Oscar muttered, shaking his head. Cold, burned-out husks. No planets worth living on. No resources worth harvesting. Why would anyone go there? Because no one else would follow them, Amy said quietly. Because they had nowhere else to hide. Oscar looked at her for a long moment. Then he sighed and turned back to his engines. I will make sure we have enough fuel. It is going to be a long journey. The fleet traveled for another 3 years. They passed through regions of space where no human had ever been. They saw wonders that took their breath away, nebulas painted in colors that had no names, binary stars dancing around each other in eternal embrace, planets made entirely of crystal that sang when the light hit them. They also saw horrors, worlds burned to ash by unknown wars, drifting graveyards of ancient ships, the remains of civilizations that had risen and fallen before humanity learned to make fire. Some crew members began to lose hope. They whispered that the Volante were gone, that the fleet was chasing shadows, that they should turn back before they wasted their entire lives on a dream. But Cole never wavered. We made a promise, he told Amy one night, when the doubts became too heavy to carry alone. Not just to the Volante, but to ourselves, to who we want to be. We are not the kind of people who forget. We are not the kind of people who give up on those who helped us. If we turn back now, we become something less than what our ancestors hoped we would be. Amy nodded. She understood. The mission was not just about finding the Volante. It was about proving that humanity was worthy of the gift they had been. Given that the signal came on a cold morning in the 33rd year of the voyage, Amy was running a routine scan of the system ahead when she saw it. A faint pulse, barely distinguishable from the background noise of the universe. But something about it was familiar. She ran it through the ship's database and felt her heart stop. It matched the Volante communication frequency. Captain, she said, her voice trembling. I found something. Cole was at her side in seconds. He stared at the screen, at the small blinking dot that represented the signal source. His hands gripped the edge of the console so tightly that his knuckles turned white. How far? He whispered. 2 weeks at maximum speed. It is coming from a moon orbiting a dying star. Cole closed his eyes. For a moment, he looked like a man who had been carrying a heavy weight for a very long time and had just been told he could finally set it down. All ships, he said, his voice carrying across the fleet's communication network. We have found them. The 2 weeks felt like 2 centuries. Amy barely slept. No one did. The entire fleet buzzed with nervous energy, with hope and fear and desperate anticipation. When they finally arrived, Amy saw the Volante ships hanging in the darkness above a gray, lifeless moon. There were only 3 of them now. Once there had been dozens. The ships were old and battered, covered in patches and repairs. Their lights flickered weakly, like candles about to go out. A transmission came through. The voice was thin and tired, but it spoke in a musical language that humanity had never forgotten. Unknown vessels, this is the Volante remnant. We have nothing left to give. Please, leave us in peace. Cole stepped forward and activated the response channel. When he spoke, his voice was steady, but Amy could see tears running down his weathered face. This is Captain Henry Cole of the Earth Gratitude Fleet. 180 years ago, your people came to our dying world and saved us. You asked only that we remember you." He paused, struggling to control his emotions. "We remember, and we have come to bring you home." There was silence on the other end. Long, aching silence. Then a new voice spoke. It was ancient, heavy with years and sorrow, but beneath it, all was something that sounded like wonder. "I am Elder Soneth. I was a child when we left your world. I never believed I would see humans again." The voice cracked. "You came. After all this time, you came for us. We never stopped searching," Cole said. "And we never will. You saved us. Now let us save you." Amy looked out at the battered Volante ships, at the cold moon below, at the dying star that gave almost no light. She thought about all the years of searching, all the doubt and weariness and sacrifice. Thought it had all been worth it. They had found them. The first human ship to dock with the Volante flagship carried food, medicine, and clean water. The second carried engineers and repair equipment. The third carried something that could not be measured. Hope. Dr. Megan Price was among the first aboard the Volante vessel. She had trained her entire life for this moment, studying every scrap of information humanity had preserved about Volante biology. But nothing could have prepared her for what she found. The corridors were dark and cold. The walls were covered with patches where the metal had worn through and been repaired with whatever was available. The air smelled stale, recycled too many times by machines that were failing. And everywhere, there were Volante. They were thin, so thin that Megan could see their bones beneath their pale blue skin. Their large, dark eyes had lost their brightness. They moved slowly, carefully, as if every step cost them energy they could not spare. An elderly Volante approached her. His robes were worn and faded, but he held himself with quiet dignity. "I am Elder Soneth," he said through the translator. "I welcome you to our ship, though I am ashamed of what we have become." "There is no shame in survival," Megan said gently. "How many of you are there?" Soneth's expression shifted in a way that might have been grief. 1,712. "When we left your world, we numbered 12,000. The years have not been kind to us." Megan felt her heart break, but she kept her voice steady. "Then let us begin making them kinder. Show me you're sick, you're injured, you're hungry. We have brought everything we need." Over the next several weeks, the human fleet poured resources into saving the Volante. Medical teams worked around the clock, treating malnutrition and diseases that had plagued the refugees for decades. Engineers swarmed over the damaged ships, replacing failing systems and restoring power. Cooks prepared meals using supplies that had been carefully preserved for this exact purpose. Technician Gary Brooks spent 18 hours a day in the engine room of the Volante flagship. The technology was different from human designs, but the principles were the same. Machines needed power, fuel, and maintenance. Without them, they died. And these machines had been dying slowly for a very long time. "How did you keep this running?" Gary asked a young Volante who was helping him. The Volante, whose name was Tyrith, looked at the ancient engine with something like affection. "We learned to make do with less. When parts broke, we made new ones from whatever we could find. When fuel ran low, we slowed down and drifted. We never stopped because stopping meant giving up." Gary shook his head in admiration. "Your people are strong." Tyrith's expression darkened. "We are tired. Most of us were born on these ships. We have never known anything else. We have never walked under an open sky or felt solid ground beneath our feet. We have only known metal walls and recycled air and the endless darkness between stars." Gary put a hand on Tyrith's shoulder. "That is about to change." Captain Cole met with Elder Soneth in the flagship's observation room. Through the window, They could see the human fleet surrounding the Volante ships like a protective embrace. Beyond them, the dying star cast its faint red light across the void. "I must confess something," Sana said. "When your ships first appeared, I thought it was a dream. Or perhaps a hallucination, the final fantasy of a dying mind. I could not believe that anyone would come for us. We are nobody. We have nothing to offer." Cole smiled gently. "You offered us everything when we had nothing. You gave us life. You gave us a future. How could we not come for you?" Soneth was quiet for a long moment. "Your ancestors asked how they could repay us. We told them to remember us and to show kindness to others. We never expected this." "Then you did not understand humanity," Cole said. "We do not forget. We cannot forget. You saved us, and that debt can never be fully repaid. But we will spend eternity trying." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "I have something to show you." Cole inserted the chip into the ship's display system. An image appeared on the screen. A beautiful planet, blue and green, covered with oceans and forests and mountains. "This is Volante Prime," Cole said. "It is located in a system protected by the human fleet. We have spent the last 50 years preparing it for you. The atmosphere is perfect for your people. The soil is ready for planting. Cities have been built, waiting to be filled. It is yours." Soneth stared at the image. His thin body began to tremble. You built us a world. You gave us back ours. It seemed only fair." Soneth sank to his knees. For the first time since the humans had arrived, he wept. Greg, shaking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him. From a place where hope had been buried for so long that even he had forgotten it existed. Cole knelt beside him and put an arm around his shoulders. "You are not alone anymore. You will never be alone again." The journey to Volante Prime took 6 months. The Volante ships, now fully repaired, traveled at the center of the human fleet. For the first time in generations, the refugees did not have to worry about fuel or food or failing systems. They were protected. They were cared for. Megan Price spent much of the journey with the Volante, learning their stories and sharing human history in return. She became close friends with Tyrith, the young Volante who had never known anything but the inside of a ship. "What is it like?" Tyrith asked one day. "To live on a planet?" Megan thought about it. "It is big. There is no ceiling, just sky that goes on forever. The ground is not always flat. Sometimes it rises up into mountains or drops down into valleys. There are plants everywhere, growing wild, and animals that move and make sounds. And the air. The air smells different every day, depending on the weather and the season." Tyrith's eyes grew wide. "It sounds terrifying." Megan laughed. "It can be, at first. But it is also beautiful. And soon, you will see for yourself." When the fleet finally arrived at Volante Prime, the entire population gathered in the observation rooms to watch. The planet grew larger and larger in the windows, its blue oceans glittering in the light of a warm yellow sun. Shuttles carried the Volante down to the surface. Tyrith was among the first to step off the ship and onto solid ground. For a long moment, Tyrith just stood there, feeling the grass beneath his feet, the wind on his face, the warmth of the sun on his skin. Then he looked up at the endless blue sky and began to cry. All around him, Volante were doing the same. Some fell to their knees. Some embraced each other. Some simply stood in silence, unable to comprehend that their long wandering was finally over. Elder Soneth walked slowly to where Captain Cole was standing. The old Volante looked at the human with eyes full of emotion that words could not express. "Why?" Soneth asked. "We showed your ancestors kindness for a few weeks. You have given us a world. You have given us a future. This is too much. We do not deserve this. Cole shook his head. You showed kindness when it cost you everything. You helped strangers when you were dying yourselves. That is not a small thing. That is the greatest thing anyone can do. He gestured at the planet around them. This is what humanity does. When someone saves us, we remember. And we repay kindness with everything we have. Soneth reached out and took Cole's hand. Human and Volante stood together beneath an alien sky. Two species bound by a debt of gratitude that spanned 2 centuries. Thank you, Soneth whispered. Thank you for remembering us. Cole squeezed his hand. Always. 200 years had passed since the Gratitude Fleet brought the Volante home. Ambassador Lena Carter stood on the balcony of the human embassy on Volante Prime, watching the sun set over the city below. The skyline was a beautiful blend of human and Volante architecture, towers of glass and steel rising alongside buildings shaped like silver leaves. In the parks and streets, people of both species walked together, talked together, laughed together. It still amazed her, even after all her years of service. 2 civilizations, born on worlds light years apart, living side by side as family. Ambassador Carter? A voice called from inside. The ceremony is about to begin. Lena turned and walked back into the embassy. Tonight was the annual Remembrance Festival, the most important holiday on Volante Prime. Every year, the Volante gathered to honor the humans who had saved them. And every year, humans came from across the galaxy to join the celebration. The festival was held in the Great Plaza at the center of the capital city. Millions of Volante filled the streets, their pale blue skin glowing softly in the evening light. Thousands of humans stood among them, welcomed as honored guests. At the center of the plaza stood a massive statue. 2 figures, one human and one Volante, holding hands and looking up at the stars. Beneath them, carved in stone, were words that every child on Volante Prime learned before they could walk. Suffering recognizes suffering. Gratitude answers. Elder Tyrus walked slowly to the base of the statue. He was ancient now, the oldest living Volante, the last survivor of those who had been born on the wandering ships. His body was frail, but his mind was still sharp, and his voice still carried across the plaza. 230 years ago, Tyrus began. My people came to a dying world called Earth. We were refugees, homeless wanderers with nothing to offer but kindness. We helped the humans because it was the right thing to do. We asked for nothing in return except that they remember us. The crowd was silent, listening. We did not expect them to come looking for us. We did not expect them to spend decades searching the galaxy for our battered ships. We did not expect them to build us a world and give us a future. Tyreth's voice trembled. But they did, because humans do not forget. Because to them, kindness is not a transaction. It is a seed that grows into something larger than anyone can imagine. Tyreth turned and gestured to the humans in the crowd. Look around you. These are not strangers. These are our brothers and sisters. Our children play together. Our scientists work together. Our artists create together. 2 species, separated by the vastness of space, brought together by a simple act of compassion. He paused, gathering his strength for the final words. My people were dying. We had given up hope. And then humanity came, and they told us that we mattered, that our kindness had not been forgotten, that we deserved to live. Tears streamed down his aged face. This is what kindness can do. This is what gratitude can become. Remember this lesson. Carry it with you wherever you go. And when you meet others who are suffering, show them the same love that was shown to us. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Volante and humans embraced each other, weeping and laughing at the same time. Fireworks exploded overhead, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Lena watched the celebration with a full heart. She thought about all the history that had led to this moment. The dying Earth, the Volante ships descending from the gray sky, Laura Bennett making a promise she never forgot, the Gratitude fleet searching for decades, the reunion at the dying star, the new world built from hope and love, all of it because someone chose to help a stranger not far away. On Earth, a young student named Chris Grant sat in his classroom, learning about the Volante for the first time. His teacher showed images of the aliens, tall, thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. She explained how they had come to Earth during the darkest time in human history and saved everyone. She described the Gratitude fleet and the long search through the stars. She talked about Volante Prime and the alliance between the two species that had lasted for centuries. Doc Chris listened with wide eyes. "Why did they help us?" he asked. "They didn't even know us." The teacher smiled. "Because that is what good people do. They help others who are suffering, even if they get nothing in return." The Volante taught us that lesson, and we made sure we would never forget it. And we found them and gave them a planet? We did, because when someone shows you kindness, you should repay it 1,000-fold. That is the human way. Chris thought about this for a long time. That night, he went home and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, on a world built by human hands, the Volante were celebrating their friendship with humanity. Two species, bound together by kindness and gratitude. He made a decision then. When he grew up, he would join the diplomatic corps. He would travel to Volante Prime and work to strengthen the bonds between the two civilizations. He would make sure that the lesson was never forgotten. Kindness matters. Gratitude matters. And when you help someone in their darkest hour, they will remember it forever. On Volante Prime, the Remembrance Festival continued long into the night. Elder Tyreth sat in a place of honor, surrounded by his descendants and by the human friends who had become family. He was tired, more tired than he had ever been, but he was happy. A young Volante child climbed onto his lap. "Grandfather," she said, "tell me the story again. Tell me about the humans who came from the stars." Tyrus smiled and began to speak. The same words he had spoken thousands of times before. Long ago, when our people were lost and dying, strangers came to save us. They searched for us for many years, never giving up, never forgetting the kindness we had once shown them. And when they found us, they gave us everything: a home, a future, a family. They asked for nothing in return except that we remember them. And so we do. Every day, every year, forever. The child's eyes were bright with wonder. "Will we always be friends with the humans?" "Always," Tyreth promised. "Because kindness creates bonds that cannot be broken." And the humans taught us something important. Gratitude is not just a feeling. It is a choice you make every day, to honor those who helped you, to repay their love with your own. He looked up at the night sky, at the stars that had once seemed so cold and empty. Now they were filled with meaning, with memory, with hope. "Show kindness to humanity," Tyreth said softly, "and they will make you immortal in myth." Across the galaxy, in temples and schools and homes, the story was told and retold. The Volante had become more than aliens. They had become symbols of compassion, figures in human mythology as sacred as any god or hero. Parents told their children about the strangers who came from the stars. Artists painted their images on walls and canvases. Poets wrote verses about their sacrifice. And whenever humans encountered a species in need, they remembered the lesson the Volante had taught them: help those who suffer. Expect nothing in return, and trust that kindness, given freely, will one day return to you. ATOUSANDFOLD. The statue in the Great Plaza stood watch over the city as the celebration faded and the stars wheeled overhead. Two hands clasped together, human and Volante, reaching toward the infinite sky. Beneath them, the words carved in stone glowed softly in the moonlight. Suffering recognizes suffering. Gratitude answers. And so it had. And so it always would. Forever.